In a time long ago, there was a world hidden from our own. It was a place of gods and giants, of magic and monsters. This world was called Asgard. It was a golden city in the sky, a fortress for the powerful gods who ruled the 9 realms. They were strong. They were proud. They believed they were safe behind their great walls. But safety is an illusion, a fleeting dream before the inevitable nightmare. Even in a city of gold, shadows can grow long and darkness often wears a familiar face, a smiling mask that hides its true, terrible intentions. Among these gods of thunder and war, of poetry and light, lived someone different, someone who did not fit. He was not born of Asgard's golden light, but came from the world of giants, a place of frost and chaos. He walked among the gods, called one of their own, yet he was forever an outsider. This was Loki. He was the god of mischief, the master of lies, the architect of ruin. He was clever, he was charming, but his heart was a tangled knot of envy and darkness, a cold place where loyalty went to die. The gods of Asgard, in their foolish pride, thought they could control him. They saw his cleverness as a useful tool, a sharp knife they could wield for their own purposes. They laughed at his smaller tricks, his harmless pranks. They did not see the poison seeping into the foundations of their world with every lie he told. They did not understand that a small fire left unchecked can grow to consume everything. They welcomed the serpent into their home, never once thinking it would eventually bare its fangs and strike. This golden world was built on a fragile peace, a balance between order and chaos, light and shadow. The gods represented order, a predictable and boring existence. Loki was the chaos. He was the unexpected storm, the crack in the perfect vase, the whisper of doubt in a confident mind. He was the agent of change, but the change he brought was not one of renewal. It was one of destruction. His story is a warning. It is a tale of how one person's bitterness can become a fire that threatens to burn down the entire world. Loki's mind was a labyrinth of clever plots and cruel jokes. He was the trickster, a title he wore with a smug, knowing smile. His tricks were not simple games. They were exercises in chaos, designed to humiliate and disrupt. He found joy in the frustration of others, a dark satisfaction in watching the perfect plans of the gods crumble into dust. He would change his shape, becoming a fly, a horse, an old woman, anything to sow confusion. He was a master of disguise, hiding his dark heart behind 1,000 different faces. One day, he cut off the beautiful golden hair of Sif, the wife of the thunder god, Thor. It was a petty act, born of jealousy. When Thor threatened him, Loki was forced to fix his mistake. He went to the dwarves, the master craftsmen of the deep earth. He tricked them into making not only new hair for Sif, made of real gold, but also other magical treasures. He created wonders, but only because he was forced. His creativity was always a consequence of his cruelty, a beautiful flower grown from poisoned soil. Another time, a giant offered to build a great wall around Asgard. He asked for a high price, the sun, the moon, and the beautiful goddess Freya. The gods were desperate for their wall. Loki, with his silver tongue, convinced them to agree. He made a plan to trick the giant so he could not finish the wall in time. Loki changed into a beautiful mare and distracted the giant's powerful stallion. The wall was not finished. The gods were safe. But Loki had used deceit, his favorite tool, proving that even his help was just another form of chaos. These were the smaller games he played. Each trick was a test. He was testing the gods, seeing how much they would tolerate. He was pushing the boundaries, watching their patience wear thin. With every successful prank, his confidence grew. His heart grew colder. The laughter of the gods began to sound hollow to him. He started to see them not as friends, but as fools, and he began to plan for a much bigger trick. A final joke that would bring all of Asgard to its knees in sorrow and despair. The game stopped being fun. The mischief turned into something darker, something venomous. Loki's heart, once just mischievous, was now filled with true hatred. He looked at the gods, especially the beautiful and kind god Baldur, and felt nothing but envy. Baldur was loved by everyone. He was the god of light, joy, and purity. He was everything Loki was not. And so, Loki decided that this perfect light had to be extinguished. It was a stain on his world of shadows, a reminder of a warmth he could never feel. Baldur's mother, Frigg, had a terrible dream that her son would die. She traveled through the 9 realms, making everything swear an oath not to harm him. Fire, water, iron, stone, animals, they all promised. The gods thought Baldur was now invincible. They made a game of it, throwing weapons at him, watching them bounce off without leaving a scratch. They laughed, celebrating his safety. Loki watched from the shadows, his face a mask of silent rage. Their joy was like acid to him. Loki, ever the master of secrets, disguised himself as an old woman. He went to Frigg and asked her if everything had truly sworn the oath. Frigg, proud of her work, confessed she had forgotten one small thing: the mistletoe. It seemed too young, too small, too harmless to ask. This was the information Loki needed, the key to unlocking the ultimate tragedy, a small, insignificant weakness, the perfect weapon for a creature who thrived on finding the flaws in perfect things. He found the mistletoe. He carved the soft wood into a sharp dart. He then went to the one god who was not playing the game, Hod, Baldur's blind brother. Loki placed the mistletoe dart in Hod's hand. "Why don't you honor your brother?" Loki whispered. "I will guide your arm." Hod, trusting and innocent, threw the dart. It flew straight and true, guided by Loki's dark will. It struck Baldur, the beloved god of light, and he fell to the ground, dead. The laughter of the gods turned to screams of horror. The light of Asgard had gone out. The death of Baldur was the beginning of the end. It was the act that could not be forgiven. The gods' grief turned to cold, hard fury. They finally saw Loki for what he was, not a playful trickster, but a monster, an agent of destruction who had murdered their joy. They hunted him down. Loki, in his terror, ran. He hid, changing his shape into a salmon and leaping into a waterfall. But the gods were relentless. They knew his tricks. They caught him in a special net, one he himself had designed. His own cleverness became his cage. They dragged him to a dark cave deep beneath the earth, a place where the sun would never reach. They brought his two sons, Vali and Narfi. In an act of terrible vengeance, they turned one son into a wolf, who then destroyed his own brother. It was a brutal, dark justice. They used the entrails of the murdered son to bind Loki to 3 sharp rocks. The chains were unbreakable. They were made of his own family's sorrow, a perfect punishment for the god who had shattered their world. But the punishment was not over. The gods placed a giant serpent on the rock above him. The serpent's mouth dripped venom, a burning poison that fell onto Loki's face, drop by agonizing drop. His loyal wife Sigyn stayed by his side. She held a bowl to catch the venom to spare him the pain. But when the bowl was full, she had to turn away to empty it. In those moments, the venom fell onto Loki. He would twist and struggle in agony, and his thrashing would shake the entire world. This, the Norse people said, was the cause of earthquakes. There, in the darkness, Loki was left to wait. He was bound, but not broken. His hatred did not fade. It grew stronger with every drop of poison. He waited for the day of Ragnarok, the final battle, the twilight of the gods. He knew that one day his chains would break. He would rise again, not as a trickster, but as a leader of an army of monsters and giants. He would have his final revenge. He would lead the charge that would burn Asgard to the ground and bring an end to the gods who had chained him in the dark.